Okay, it's 4 o'clock. Let's call our meeting to order.
Mr. Borgman.
Here.
Mr. Holke.
Here.
Mr. Johnson. Mr. Eberl.
Here.
John Cruz is with us. I see Council President Earl is with us. I am also present.
Very good. Public comment period. At this time, the commission would recognize members of the public who've indicated a desire to address the commission. Seeing none. Commissioner, council, and staff comments. Commissioners, do you have anything today?
I have just one question. What happened to the website?
Didn't know there was a problem with it
It was
until,
down.
It went
this
down.
morning.
It went down this morning, and I didn't
Okay.
know what the issue was, but Sean got it back up pretty
So we
pretty
just
quick.
assume it was an internal thing. We don't have any indication something nefarious happened to it.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I had a quick one too. I got a call earlier today and passed on to you, Bob, about the work on Central and Upham.
Oh, and Upham? Mhm.
And that was
Yep.
not the utility?
correct. Yeah, it was the city crews working up there.
All right,
There were some traffic issues.
excellent. Council comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Staff comments?
Nope,
Saving it all for the reports.
you bet.
Second review of the O&M budget.
Yeah, before we go through that, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. Just remind everybody that this is the O&M, the operation and maintenance budget. We do in the spring, we used to do them both in the fall. Now we do in the spring the capital budget. So all the projects that we do, the construction projects are included in that capital budget. This is just the operation and maintenance. So this is heavily dependent upon storms, cold weather, main breaks, things like that. Because basically what we're doing, staff goes through it, they look at the expenses for the past years, they try to anticipate what the weather is going to be like next year and budget accordingly. So that's basically what we're doing. We're anticipating, making our best guess for what's going to happen next year. One thing on the purchase power, you will notice that it's higher than last year, or rather than this current year. We did have quite a credit running since April of this year. And the way it works, we get our bill, like right now we're getting our bill. At the end of the year, it's analyzed. They look at how the purchase went with the actual, and then there will be either an additional bill the following year that just gets added on, or a credit. This year it was a credit. So we're anticipating that next year the power bill will not be as low, plus the credit won't be there. That's why it's higher for the anticipating for 2017.
It looks like
So-
it's similar to what it was in 2015.
Closer to that, yes. Yes. Yep. Okay. Kent?
Okay, so at the October meeting, that was the first review of the O&M budget. This is the second review. Between the two, there have been some adjustments to the O&M budget levels, and you should have all received those, that summary of changes, and those changes are all incorporated into the budget. Also, we included this month graphs after the income statements for both the electric and the water utility, and that shows a 10-year trend of actual sales, the 2016 estimate, and 2017 budget. And also on the electric utility, it shows the graph of the expenses for the purchase power in green and the operating expenses excluding depreciation in red, so you can see what the trend of those expenses are over the years.
And that was Mike's suggestion.
Yeah, that
It was
graph
a good
is
one.
helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
For the electric utility, the key assumption in the revenues are a 5% increase in rates effective with the February 2017 bills. That 5% increase in rates assumes that we are able to maintain our current rate of return of 6%. Currently, the Public Service Commission is using 5% as their rate of return on rate cases. If we'd only be authorized at 5%, the rate increase would drop to around 3% increase. On the water side, we have built in a 12% increase in rates effective with the February 2017 bills. That assumes a 7.5% rate of return. In communications with the Public Service Commission, they've indicated that they would not authorize that high of a rate of return, but what they are looking at doing is giving us additional depreciation expense that they would build into our rates of approximately $580,000, which would give us the additional money that we are looking for the main replacement program. We had figured in February 2017 that February of 2017 that those rates would go into effect. In communications I just had with the Public Service Commission today, it's probably going to be closer to April, just because of the hearing process that they go through. Because this is not a standard rate request, it goes through the full Public Service Commission, and there's more of a process that needs to go through for that. The original date that they had proposed for the hearing was December 22nd, but based on information that they need to put together and being able to get the information out to our customers, it's looking like that's probably going to have to be delayed into January of next year. So as we find out more, we'll definitely let you know more. And then also in December, we will be providing the 2018 and 2019 forecast for the O&M budget, as well as 2018 and 2019 cash flow forecast. That's all I had. If anyone has any specific questions.
Okay. What kinds of questions you guys got today? John?
Off the top of my head, I want to ask Bob, you mentioned that you use some Ouija board weather thing to try and figure out what the impact's going to be on the maintenance needs. Can you tell us a little bit about the methodology you use for determining what you think the weather forecast is going to be 12 months from now?
It's not that specific. I mean, you kind of look at what, well, you take a 3-year average is what we get. We get 3-year budget sheets, or the department managers do, and they look back and look at what things were in each of those years that might have been unusual. And if it's something that was in last year, they'll pull it out, look what the raw numbers would be. And then they look forward to this year, what are some things that might be in there that aren't normal? And they'll add those in. And then you do look at, was 2016, it's been a very mild, as far as on the electric side, it's been a very mild summer. So electric revenues are down. We didn't have that many storms. So those accounts that are affected by those issues might be lower than normal. So you say, well, do you put them back to normal? Do you leave them lower than that? So yeah, it's a real guessing game as to
So we're not using
what
an
it'd be.
outside service? We're
No.
not paying somebody to
No.
push the thing around on the Ouija board
No.
for us? We're basing it on our historical knowledge?
Mostly historical knowledge, and if we have heard predictions, it's going to be a colder than normal winter. Dave might throw in some more revenue or money for main breaks or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kent, these next set of questions are probably directed at you. On page 3 of the operations and maintenance budget, that's right up here in the summary, I noted that industrial power consumption has been falling for the 4-year period that you show. Do we have some sense of where that's going to bottom out? Do we have some idea that that curve is going to flatten out somewhere? Or do we anticipate that's going to continue to fall over time?
It all depends on our individual customer mix. We have had some larger customers that have scaled back or closed their operations. It's hard to tell what's going to happen with those in the future. It all depends on portions of the economy that affect their industry.
The CP2 customers, too, have gone up slightly, and that might be, there's always customers that may transfer from a CP3 to a CP2, so it might, because their load has reduced. So you get some of that, but none of them have changed very much. The general trend is down. Conservation efforts, no doubt, have a lot to do with it.
Just as an aside, a future Educate the Commission topic might be the mix of the different customers in the different classes. I think we understand what the rates are, but some examples of who's who might be handy.
Dovetailing with that, it might be interesting to see what, and this would be a little bit more, I don't know, but just interesting, what economic development efforts are targeted each of those buckets.
That's a really good point. That's good.
Because if we're seeing drop-off in usage or seeing customers within those categories drop off in usage or leave the area, that would indicate, and maybe be an early indicator for economic development?
Or be an early indicator to us that we need to rethink some of our approach going forward.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the strategic planning, we made certain assumptions. And I know you're going to talk about having had a working session with staff about the strategic plan later. But revisiting that on some regular rotational basis, I think is important. And any indicators that we can have of what were our assumptions on that day and what do we think they would be today will give us good guidance over the life of that plan. Okay. Ken, I'm looking at page 6, which is 2017 operating and maintenance, and it has to do with projected distribution of electric expenses. And this is just a clarifying question for me. Purchase power includes some M1 stuff, and it doesn't. That first line item, the $22 million budget item, there's some M1 in there?
No,
No.
it's just the purchase power from Wisconsin Public
That's
Service.
just Wisconsin Public Service.
And then also, it factors in the purchase power from our one large solar customer,
Okay,
the non-net metering customer.
okay. That makes sense. You answered that question. In looking at this, Bob, I'm looking now at the electric operations and maintenance expenses projection. It's on page 8. And I'm looking at the distribution expenses for maintenance and distribution expenses for operation. I see you list all the substation expenses there. Can I take it because there is not a placeholder for some money to be spent from a maintenance or a labor standpoint, that there is no substation on the map for next year as of the writing of this? Is that a
new
reasonable?
substation?
Yeah, is that a
Yes.
reasonable assessment?
That would not be in this budget, if there was. That would be in the capital budget. Is that
But
be-
there wouldn't be any maintenance costs that you planned for ahead of time?
Not on it, no. Any preliminary cost get put into a separate account that just gets held until the job is approved. And then at that time, they roll into that job order, and then that all gets capitalized together.
So what do you do with
So-
those dollars spent if the job doesn't get approved?
Where do you put those, Kent, if they don't?
Get expense.
Then it does get expensed. Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's a good answer. It just, I looked at that and went, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. In that area, though, just for your information, you see a lot of station expenses and different things with common after them. And that was added quite a few years ago when we worked with ATC. In many cases in the substation, we own the facilities, like we own the batteries, and we own the fences, we own things like that. And then they pay us a fee annually for that. So those expenses are tracked separately, and then they pay their portion of that cost.
Okay. Ken, am I reading this right, that between electric and water, we're projecting that the pilot payment goes up as a result of this budget? If I added the two numbers together and came to 125,000 plus or minus, would that number make you go, no, John, you added it up wrong?
Pilot payment goes up directly for two reasons. Additional investment in plant, or the tax rates increase. So it's directly tied to the capital budget,
Okay,
not the O&M budget.
okay.
So parts of the capital budget do come through over to the O&M budget. So based on the capital projects that we have, pilot will increase, depreciation expense will increase, and both of those are reflected in the operations of the
Okay.
The capital budget drives it up and it pays out of the O&M budget.
Well, that's what, it
Yeah.
appears in the budget, that it's higher than it was last year, and if you add the two numbers together, it looks like it's about 125K higher.
Does-
So I was trying to make that very correlation, what drove it up, and I think Kent just answered it.
Yeah, and is it the water tower that's getting capitalized that's making a
Right.
big change? That
Yeah.
project gets finished and comes out of construction in progress?
Makes sense. All right, I'm going to jump over to water real quick. And again, these are, help me develop a better understanding. At some point, I'll understand enough of this to stop asking questions. I believe that happens about a year after my last year on the commission. I'm looking at water operations and maintenance expense, that's page 19. You've got your operating labor and expense up, a little less than 20K. Is that an assessment of staff, or is that an assessment of additional labor that's in that weather forecast?
Which section?
I'm looking at, again, I'm looking at page 19.
Yep.
Water it's a 200642,
642.
which is first line.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, it looks like it went up about 18K. And I'm just trying to understand what was the assumption that made us think we're going to have to spend more money in that area?
If you look at 2015, it's actually pretty close to 2017. So it's probably more, and I don't know, Dave, if you know, but it's probably more an issue that something was less this year than normal.
Okay. Is it possible that's
The estimate
overtime?
was lower, so I'm not sure. 14 did, or, no, actually that was 14 into 15. We had a lot more operation expense because of the cold weather.
So what are you saying, it's about 15% increase, right?
It just struck me that it went down, then it came back up, and it came back up with a vengeance.
So for 2016, for the estimates that we put in there, we base it on history so far for the year.
Mhm.
And so we take a look to see what through July. So we had 7 months in there.
Okay.
So we say, okay, if 7 months was this much, how much is going to be for a full year? And depending on, excuse me, depending on the timing of projects that they have going on, there may be more cost in one part of the year than another. So maybe using that methodology doesn't exactly come out to what it could be at the end of the year. So that could show
Okay.
a decrease.
So I guess the answer to my question is there was no specific driver that you identified that was going to cause an increase in that area. It was the methodology of how you did, you divided by 7 and multiplied by 12. It was formulaic?
Right.
Okay, that's a good answer. That explains
There's
it.
likely a lot of truth to that because we're project driven all summer long during construction season. So this is kind of a chemical maintenance account. So we're doing less maintenance to our chemical treatment equipment when we're doing construction projects.
Okay.
That's more winter work.
And Dave, you'll know the answer to this off the top of your head. If we look at line 651 on the same page, maintenance of structures and improvements, it had a spike in 16, and then it falls back in 17 to something that looks more normal. What was the thing that we did this year? Can you just remind me what we did?
Yeah, there was a re-roofing of a well house for $20,000 included in the 16 budget. That's not in the 17 budget. We have 2 flat roof well houses. That's what.
Right, you have ballast membrane.
Right.
On those, right.
Right.
Okay, so it's in the budget. Did we do the work, or did we push the work off to
We
next year?
didn't, and it's actually in the capital budget. No, it's in 2000. Oh, wrong. No.
It appears
Oh,
somewhere
I'm
else.
sorry, this is a
at the
treatment
end.
plant,
Yeah.
651
Yeah, yeah,
treatment
yeah.
plant. We did the aerator.
Oh,
And we did some railings to the filter cells
Okay.
for some safety stuff, yeah.
Okay, so those were just one-time expenses that
Yeah.
unlikely to recur soon?
Right.
Okay, good enough. I'm almost done, I swear. Almost. I'm going to jump up to communication utility, because this one really got my attention. Page 24, I'm looking at line item 300923, outside service employed. What are we hiring somebody to do? What are we doing that we don't have an in-house capacity for?
Our documentation through the years hasn't been that great as far as our splice cases and linking up the strands. So we'll use outside services to come take the splice cases down and itemize how they're connected through.
It's a catch-up activity.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's money we saved in the past, but it caught up to us.
Yes.
Thank you. Come on, that was an underhanded pitch. I don't get much more underhanded. I am curious about one thing having to do with the the communications utility. It seems to have had its expenses go up this year and again next year, without its revenue significantly going up. Is that a more proper apportionment of time and effort and actual expense? Is that also kind of a catch-up activity, or did something significant change and I just missed it?
Related to inspections?
Yeah, I think that we're trying to use the same methodology we use in the electric department, is how we try to maintain and inspect the system thoroughly once every 5 years. We're trying to do the same thing with our fiber. It's a catch-up. We haven't been doing that.
Okay, so you're being consistent.
The cable's getting some age on it. It's just time to get out there and look at it, physically look at every connection point.
You also alluded last month to the fact that you had had a change in the contract with the school district, and that was driving an increased cost or reduced revenue?
Decrease in revenue.
Correct.
Is this a good time to talk about that, or should we hold that off for later? Because I'm curious about that contract. What happened there? They're buying less service from us?
No, it's the same service. The original contract included the installation of the plant, and they paid that back through the contract. That's become mature now, so that they're not paying for the installation of the plant, they're only paying for the service.
So it's like when you lease a space and you want them to build it out, and you pay off the build out over the first couple of years, and then it's done and you're just paying rent.
Now you're just doing maintenance mode.
And that's a good explanation, because when I looked at the budget, it appeared as if we didn't recognize that that was going to fall off at that point. And you know, I know budgets tend to be very dry, and they lack that sort of but aspect to them. But it looks as if we didn't note that in the middle of the year it was going to fall off, because I went back and looked at last year's for it. So that's revenue that we acquired because we did some work at the installation. That bill has now been paid, and what we're seeing now for revenue is the actual vended rate that they're paying for the use of those fibers. Do I understand that right?
Correct.
Perfect.
And you all,
So- Like I say, some of the costs too, that when Nick originally figured it up, some of the costs that he had in there that established that rate were actually come in lower than what we anticipated, the ongoing expenses, and that's why he was able to
And you
reduce.
pass that savings on to the school district?
We do.
Wow. You should tell them
We
that.
probably did.
yeah, oh yeah, they're aware of it. They're very aware.
That was all the questions that I had.
All right, well, you guys think what's on your list that he didn't already ask. Gordy had one.
Yeah, I have a question. The council just finished budget deliberations, and we're going to have a public hearing at the next council meeting for the general public to come and ask questions. And I have a question in regard to your budget that would probably be asked by the council if we had to approve your budget. Your water sales, there's a 20-year spread here of water sales, and they've gradually gone down, which you're all aware of. Back in '97, it was approximately 99 million cubic feet, and in 2016, it was down to 80 million cubic feet. So we're obviously using less water. The question is, what was the need for that new water tower on the northeast side of town last year?
The new one on the,
No, the one
Oh.
over.
over on the east
One we
side?
just built
Yeah, on the east side.
by
Yeah.
Marshfield Door.
Well, it wasn't so much related to the consumption of water, and Dave could probably explain it better, but it's for firefighting, for one thing, for having more capacity available.
Okay,
But the big thing is, we couldn't take the one tower out of service without having a second tower on that same pressure zone. We have
Okay.
two pressure zones in town. We have two towers on each pressure zone.
okay.
So you can take either one out and do maintenance and keep the other one in service.
And you didn't have a second one over there, is what
No.
you're saying?
So when we
Okay.
needed to take the first one down to paint it this year, you had to have the second one in service before we could do that.
Okay.
As I remember, it was the Verizon tower issue
Yeah.
that identified the single point of failure.
We were gonna try to combine both pressure zones into one pressure zone.
Right.
That's right, you had a plan for that.
Yeah, and when we did that, we had like,
You did the experiment.
10 main breaks.
right, 10 main breaks in the first 3 hours, so.
Yeah, so they had a single point of failure, they identified that couldn't continue.
Thank you.
Great question.
The audience hopefully will benefit by that answer too,
Yeah,
because there may have been people that were wondering what the reason for it was.
right.
Thank you.
Other questions? Is there a motion to approve the O&M budget?
So
Wait, are we doing it, or is this just a second reading?
It's up to you. If you,
You guys
Yeah.
want to bring it back again, or you want to approve it?
you will have some additional
I'm ready to
information.
approve.
Yeah.
I'm ready to approve it.
Motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You are approved. Job orders.
There are no job orders.
Thank you. Bills and payroll. Kent, it's your night.
Wait, we're in the
Reviewed
time.
and certified proper for payment.
Thank you. I had one question. Can you speak to, just give us a little color on the $23,000 for the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin?
I don't know specifically, but I know we have had invoices that we have paid relating to our rate cases. I don't know what the balance of that would have been, but I can certainly find out and get back to you on that.
I know a rate case costs something, never knew exactly what it cost.
Yeah, there could be, basically any work that the Public Service Commission does for us, no matter if it's a rate case or anything else, is billed back.
Yeah, they charge you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I had the same question, and I'll tell you what flagged it for me. There's somewhere in Bob's narrative that says we should anticipate about $6,000 charge for the rate case that's before them.
That's more than that.
Right, so
Yeah.
that's what made me go, okay, so that's like 4 rate cases. We didn't do 4 rate cases this year.
Yeah,
Um,
it's probably, well, there's 2 rate cases plus the water, well, both of them have been somewhat more extensive than normal because of things that we're asking for.
Is that about the normal cost for PSC a year? Somewhere around $25,000? Is that typical?
No, typically, it's about $6,000 to $7,000 in total for each, the electric and the water. So I'll go back and take a look at the individual invoices and figure out what that detail is and let you know.
Just curious.
Along with that, when you come back with that answer, tell me where I would be able to see that correlating number in the O&M budget for the next year.
Okay.
And typically, they do just a blanket assessment of cost too, out to the utilities, correct? I mean, they're not all of them are specific to a particular item.
Right, what they
That
do
doesn't sound right.
is,
Yeah.
they figure out what their expenses are for the year, figure out how much they've charged out utilities for those services, and figure out what the difference is, and then they assess those dollars back to utilities based on revenues. So it's called a remainder assessment.
Yeah. That could be
We're
part of it.
short.
I
Get
want
more
a deal
money.
like that.
Can we do that? Harry, did you, were you jumping in there?
I'm just curious what the hourly rate was if you get invoiced for those rate cases.
That would be good to know.
It's
No,
fairly
that's,
high.
that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
bet it's more than $750.
No.
Other questions on bills and payroll? Is there a motion to approve bills and payroll?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Harry, is there a second?
Second.
George? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Previous meeting minutes. Please review, and I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you,
those
Harry.
minutes.
Second?
Oh, I wasn't here.
Oh, you are
I can't do
disqualified
that.
from
I
that.
wasn't here either.
I'll make the motion.
Well,
You two got
even
it.
though it violates my personal rule of, since I'm the one who approves the minutes, I should never vote for this. I will second the motion for the sake of procedure and proper rules, and let's move forward with this.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Operations and financial reports, Bob.
On the operations side, I think you all know I've been spending a lot of time with MUW because of the staff mass exodus that we had. We now have all 4 positions filled in the office, and we're up and running, and things are going very well. Heather Brinig was hired first as the Marketing and Member Services Manager, and she's getting a lot of the conferences going. Mike Sherpinko, it's a tough one to get out of the way it's spelled, but he was hired as a regional safety manager. He's been having contact with our safety manager, but with all the other, there's 10 of them total. 2 of whom have since given their resignation. They've gone out into business on their own. And then Jamie Keogh, I think is her name, Keogh. It's hard to, but anyway, she was hired as the office coordinator, and she just started beginning of last week before. So, Halloween. So she's working out well. And then Jeff Stone was hired as the executive director. Jeff comes from the PSC. He was he's head of the water department and the service area with the PSC. And he's been there now, started that same week, a little bit later. But all seem to be doing well. So
Good.
We're up and running.
We're happy to have you back full-time.
Yeah. It's good. Melissa, you're going to cover the all-employee meeting?
Yeah, and so at the last all-employee meeting, we talked about a couple of things. We did go over the strategic plan, and at that point, I think it was the third time in an all-employee session that we've gone over items from the strategic plan. And Bob did give a real good review, very similar to what he shared with you guys at the last commission meeting, just kind of a recap, but really also talking about how the strategic plan should be driving decision-making and you know, that we really encourage them to kind of hold the decisions that we're making to challenge, you know, how they tie into the strategic plan. You know, we're looking forward. Hopefully we'll be starting to do quarterly, maybe supervisory meetings that will do kind of roundtable session and actually be tying that into kind of where we're at with the strategic plan. And I don't know at what timing compared to when we do the reporting to you guys, but that's something that we're going to be doing hopefully starting soon. And we also then discussed the employee survey. And one of the things, we gave them the results, and it was really neat to be able to share with them that the results from the employee survey and the customer survey really kind of said the same thing as far as our customer service levels go, that our employees really felt that they were doing a great job and they were really tied to the customer service levels that they were giving. We're hoping to do some focus groups on the couple of areas that, you know, we noticed some trends that maybe there were some areas we could improve. So we'll pull some employees in and keep working on those items and move forward. But it was a good meeting.
One thing on the employee survey, we didn't get as good a participation as we'd hoped. And there were some questions in there that some of them felt, or came out in the meeting, that some of them felt that it allowed us to zero in on them, maybe identify their responses. So they were reluctant. So we're going to pull some of those questions out next time. So it's not quite, we have to know somewhat of where it's coming from as far as which department to narrow it down, so we at least know where to begin to find the problem, if there is one, or to identify just where the comments are coming from in a general sense. But we don't need to know the individual.
And the interesting thing, the items that they really wanted us to pull out were demographic questions that the survey company actually suggested
Right.
that we put in, because they actually run comparisons then to other utilities and other businesses. They weren't questions that we cared about, so we'll pull them for sure.
Interesting.
That's it.
I have one question about the operation. Central Mechanical Systems installed a hydronic heating system to aid in cold weather startups at M1. Was that in the original design for M1, or is that something that got missed? And through experience, we recognize that we needed to do this now because we've had problems with it? How did that come about, I guess, is what I'm asking.
During cold weather starts, what would happen is a mixing block where water and gas is in would flash freeze during startup. And then when we after we'd start, we'd try to inject water. And because it was flash frozen, we had to push a lot of pressure on the water. Once it broke loose, it was enough to cause a flame out. Gas shuts off, it caused a blowout situation. We experienced one or two of those. Also, there's the other units in Wisconsin that experienced some of those issues. So we took measures through the last year to minimize our risk, and also looking for solutions. And working in conjunction with the other utility, we were able to come up with a solution where we're basically heating the gas that was causing the flash freezing of the water.
Because you were dropping the gas's pressure dramatically. Is that what
Well,
happened?
the gas is essentially at ambient, and when it's cold out,
Yeah.
obviously below
Okay.
zero.
Okay.
Once it's running, the gas is all heated, so it's not an issue. It's just
So
that initial.
the need for this was, through experience, we determined that the original design had a potential for a problem for us. Okay. Just out of curiosity, do you know off the top of your head what that cost us?
Just under 25,000 right now.
What did you say right now?
We're working through an issue with how it was manufactured and a piece of it.
Okay, so there may be a go back.
Might be, yeah, a little bit of an adder to that.
Okay. Okay, that one just struck me as curious because the plant's been here for a while, and to see something like that in this age of maturity with the plant just sort of grabbed my attention.
Yeah, it's just, not every time, it took a while to diagnose it because, it's all based on ambient conditions, and
Mhm.
that's ultimately what drove it, and it's the gas, and it could be the gas that's coming from under, just outside the enclosure,
Mhm.
so it just took a while.
And a lot of it is we don't run that much. in
Yeah, you
cold
don't,
weather,
yeah, if
so-
it was constantly running, you'd never know this.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, the water injection, is that part of the air pollution control?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, no water, no run.
Okay. Dave, make sure that water keeps going.
No water, no working.
We got it. All right, well, thank you. I appreciate you answering that for me.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Anything you guys want to add on hydrant flushing and water main maintenance?
No?
I got a question on that.
I'll add one thing. We are also planning on sharing this information with the customers, so we will be we'll be creating a press release just because I kind of threw Dave under the bus a little with this one and asked him to share this one because I saw a question or a comment on Facebook by one of my Facebook friends that they noticed a hydrant being flushed and they thought it seemed wasteful. And so I thought, well, let's put education. So
Yep.
I volunteered Dave to put this one together.
Dave, just a question. In the discipline I come out of, when you use something that you find, we call it benchmarking. Did you benchmark this? And the reason I'm asking is because these highlighted words, it says, you will see public works personnel. And in this community, that means like Dan connects people. So I'm thinking it was Marshfield utility personnel that's actually doing this? Or did I completely misunderstand?
I think that's just a picture off of the internet.
No,
Yeah, the wording under it,
The
though, should
wording.
have been changed to.
It says public works
Marshfield
personnel in the
Utilities.
word.
Oh, yeah, I just, okay.
Well, actually, the
Which is
city's
fair.
gonna- city's going to take over doing that for us at no cost later this year.
Oh,
Really?
really?
Missed that.
Is that the pilot program? If you're, is that right, Gordy? If you're gonna use this piece.
You'll have to go to the hearing tomorrow.
You have to go to the hearing tomorrow. There you go. There you go. By the way, that is very
Oh,
informative.
no, I wrote that like that. Public Works is Public Works. Specifically in Marshfield, yeah, it's separate, but it's not that way all over. Public Works is a
I
lot
hear you.
of times water.
Are you gonna publish this somewhere? You're gonna get your name out there? Can we find it?
Yeah, we changed it before we.
It's going to be on the press release.
It's gonna be on the press release.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Put it in there?
No, I said we should, before we post it on the
Do we
I
website.
have a
think we
motion?
should attribute it to you, yeah.
You do have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second? Second. Harry? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.